Welcome into the first Fantasy Crunch Time video. Well, I'll be going over in this video. I'll be going over the three teams I drafted for the FFPC $350 entry. First place is 500 grand. Very interesting league that I found last year. The rules this year are a lot different. This year, the rules are it's a tight end premium league, which I've never played in before, so drafting was a lot different. Tight end premium is points per reception for tight ends is 1.5, where everyone else gets 1 point per the reception. So I decided to do three teams in this, doing $1,000 worth of entry total, because when you buy your third team, you actually get $50 credit, which is kind of nice. But I wanted to do it in three different stages in the off season, where I did the first one in early July, the second one in mid July, and then the second one in early August, the third one just yesterday on August 21st. And you'll see how like the drafting for myself is different. Each team that I got has a different pick. So I had pick 2, then pick 9, and then pick 5. And I'll show you all the teams that I ended up drafting. But you'll see, like, I wasn't comfortable being pick 2. I obviously got a very good running back. But since it's a tight end premium league, the top 3 tight ends always go very, very early in the draft. Like Travis Kelce is a number 3 or number 4 overall pick in the first round. And then Waller and Kittle kind of fall between. And then you have to make the decision on where you take your tight end, basically, where you're going to go the next best 3, which is Hawkinson, Andrews, and then Pitts, most likely, since he's the rookie stud coming out. You have to make that decision. And every time it came around the first draft, I never felt like it was the best pick, whoever was left for me. So we just ended up with a very late round tight end, and then I started trying to piece together backup tight ends. I actually ended with 4 tight ends on my team because it's a 20-person roster where I have plans to cut one of them. I'm just trying to find like a good commonplace of consistency, because the rest of the roster is amazing. And we'll go over that team first. But just again to go over the format for this league, and what we'll be going over for this video is my teams I drafted, and I'm going to actually be going week by week, showing you guys updates and things of that nature, so you can kind of follow along, as well as making videos with advice and everything, where I'll give you advice before the season starts for your drafting kind of strategies, values in players you take, things of that nature. I'm more of a points per reception type of fantasy player. I don't really like standard ball. To me, it's kind of boring. I haven't tried best ball really. I really like this format too, where as I drafted more and more the tight end premium, because it just gives you another alternative as a strategy to building your team, instead of the same standard running backs are king early. 1 or 2 teams will load up on the wide receivers, which is great. But now you have the third option of building a tight end as your foundation, because they get so much extra added value on their reception. So if you get a Kelce, Waller, or Kittle, you're in good shape, because as long as they stay healthy, obviously, they're going to put up fucking numbers. 90 plus catches for Kelce and Waller, and then Kittle is right around there, but he's more of the yards after catch tight end out of all of them. He's just a beast when he's healthy. So we'll be going over the first team we're going to go over is the team I drafted on July 10th. As you can see, the team name is Fumbling Idiots. It kind of just gives you a rundown of, there's a 20 player bench, or 20 players total on your team. It's a free agent budget acquisition where you're doing the blind auction. You have $1,000. And one thing from last year was just kind of a standard PPR format with the same thing: 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, tight end, kicker, and defense. It was just kind of standard like that. So, but the thing that I realized, because I haven't done a lot of free agent budget auctions, is that I ended the season with way too much money left over. So let me give you more details on the FFPC league. It's such a cool thing. You're in a 12-person league, and the top 4 teams go to the mini playoffs. But if you finished as the number 1 team at the end of the regular season, you're automatically entered into the big playoffs. If you finish with the number 1 points for, you're automatically entered into the big playoffs. And then if you win the mini 4-person playoff, you are also entered into the big playoffs. So there's potentially 3 teams per league that can get moved into the big playoffs. And the big playoffs is all of the league winners are playing versus each other. And now it's just the final 3 weeks, I believe is what it is. Just your cumulative points gained is where you are in the ranking. So it's no longer head-to-head. It's really cool. Last year I finished somewhere in between, I believe, like 600 and 800. I only did 1 team last year. It was the same entry, 350, and I think I made like $1,500 or $1,600 total back. So I made a nice like close to 1,200-ish profit, which was really cool. This year I did 3 teams because if just one of them hits, then I get all my money back, and I have the chance at the big shot at $500K for first place. Is so cool. But so here's the first team I drafted. So remember, this is early in the off season. This is pre-Rodgers, as you'll see in a second, or you'll notice right now. Pre-Rodgers even coming back. So you can see my quarterbacks. I just said, fuck it, 11th round, Rodgers is there. I'm going to snag him as my backup quarterback because I was positive he was going to come back and play for Green Bay this year. And if Brady gets hurt, now I have fucking one of the best quarterbacks still. I don't have to worry about quarterbacks at all. And the shape of this team is very, very solid. Wide receivers I love them to death. Running backs, it's so good, except for Tariq Cohen. I kind of left the room for too long and came back and had a kind of panic pick with like 20 seconds left, and it took Tariq Cohen. So the only 2 picks I don't really like, and they're actually going, I'm already trying to do the free agent acquisitions. I'm going to cut Cohen and Cole Beasley, because since Beasley isn't doing, getting a COVID shot, I don't know if he's going to make the team. They may just cut him because they have Emmanuel Sanders, who's similar to Cole Beasley, and then they have Gabriel Davis that they can play. So it's like, what's the point of having Cole Beasley? So I'm trying to acquire Xavier Jones. So this again was how early in the offseason was. Cam Akers wasn't hurt yet. So Xavier Jones is a free agent. You can't pick up free agents in this either until week 1 is live. So not before the games, but just the actual week 1 of the season. So I'm going to try to get Xavier Jones, and then a very good late round wide receiver in this format to me, because you're 20 players deep, is Jalen Guyton from the Chargers. He's a starting wide receiver already. He's wide receiver 3. Last year he had the most snaps, I believe, or second most snaps out of all the wide receivers, and he started the year at wide receiver 4 or 5. And this year he's starting as wide receiver 3. And I believe their plans for Palmer is he's going to replace Mike Williams, because Mike Williams and him are more similar than Guyton. Guyton's the long ball guy. But that I'm trying to get him just as another wide receiver, because my wide receiver core is insane. So we'll just go over the draft. I have them grouped as their positions. And just something to note early, too, you'll notice a trend with my defenses that I had all 3 of my teams. I have 2 defenses, and they're the exact same defenses, Buffalo Bills and Carolina Panthers. and I'll talk them Carolina in a little bit, but we'll just go through the team really fast here. So this team, Dalvin Cook, obviously number 1.2 off the board, and then DK Metcalf at 2.11, I think is such a good value there. Then I got Terry McLaurin. Then at this point in time, there wasn't any real news about Miami possibly doing a committee type role, which I still don't really believe. I still really like Myles Gaskin. And at the end of the fourth round, it was such a good value. A lot of my picks, you'll notice I do, is just all value picks. If I think they're insane value, I'm going to take them. You'll see in the third team what I mean by that, because I stack running backs hard. And then you can just go through the rest of the team and see I got Julio, like my wide receiver core is Metcalf, McLaurin, Julio, and Robbie Anderson. That is so fucking good. You can start 4 wide receivers a week. That's really good. And I honestly love the depth of my running backs too. They're all good players to be complements to Dalvin Cook. None of them have to be stars. This is a full PPR league. I got Nyheim Hines and Devin Singletary. We're just going to ignore Tariq Cohen because I don't even know if he's really going to play this year because his knee's probably not up to par. But I'm one of the few people. I keep hearing everyone doubt Myles Gaskin, and like just yesterday's preseason game, he showed that he's a smart player. He got I think he had 9 touches I think in the first 4 drives that they played with Tag out there. And he had 2 touchdowns, six rushes, over 4.0 a carry, and 3 catches for like 40 yards. Like I think he's one of the most undervalued guys right now because as you see later in the offseason that he goes even further back. So here's the weakness of this team though, because this is the first time I've ever drafted a tight end premium league, is my tight ends. I'm still someone who believes Evan Ingram in the 9th or 10th round is a very good value because he gets 100 fucking targets. So if he's guaranteeing me 100 targets or around 100 targets, that's probably 60 catches. And that's a lot for that late of a round guy. He's not a high tight end guy, but it's hard to tell if it's his fault or fucking Daniel Jones. So, but still, I think he's a good value there. And then you'll see this is pre Carson Wentz getting hurt as well. I have Mo Alley Cox and Jack Doyle because I just think one of those guys is going to be a very, very solid tight end this year. It's most likely going to be Mo Alley Cox. But since I didn't really know what I was doing in this draft for the tight end situation, I didn't know how to fit them in. I just started deciding to take tight ends that I think can actually be decent value. You can see I took Pat Freiermuth. I'm a big Pittsburgh Steeler fan. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I just think the second half of the year he's going to be more and more involved. And again, I drafted this yesterday, July 10th. Yesterday, he had 2 touchdowns in the game with Ben. So he seems like he's a really, really good red zone type of player. So if I need a spot starter and the Steelers got a good matchup, like on a bye week, I can put Freiermuth in there if I'm like struggling with injuries or bye weeks, which is fine. So I really do like this team a lot. It has a lot of potential in my opinion. Like if I went over the actual entire league, I think this team is 3rd or 4th place in overall talent. So I have a good chance in my eyes to make the playoffs. And just to touch on the defenses really fast, if you were to look up Carolina's schedule and Buffalo's schedule, they literally fit perfectly with each other with when they have great matchups. So like week 1, Carolina plays the Jets, Buffalo plays the Steelers. Steelers' offensive line isn't the greatest, I know that, but we have a lot of offensive talent, so there's still potential for us to put up good numbers. So Carolina's going. Second week, Carolina has the Saints, I believe, and the Bills have a tougher matchup. But basically the whole year, but when Buffalo has a great matchup, Carolina has a terrible matchup, and then it's just easy to plug them in. I also think Buffalo drafting 2 DNs this year just to really solidify that defense. It's already good. Like the first 2 picks this year was defense. And then Carolina's entire draft last year was defense, and their first round pick was J.C. Horn this year. So I just really expecting them to take a nice step forward this year too. Plus they have like the third place schedule where it's really easy for them to get good matchups. So week 1 lineup for me in this league is this. I started James Robinson over Gaskin because he's playing the Patriots. And then I got my 4 horses at the wide receiver going. Hopefully Julio's going to be healthy. That's always the biggest question. But it feels like a really solid team that I'm going to be able to rely on the entire time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this works out, since this is the team that I probably you'll see what I mean by the tight ends. I really whiffed on trying to fit a tight end in there earlier and getting better value, which may be the crutch of this team and why I could potentially miss the playoffs. So that's the first team. Second team here, we drafted on August 7th. You can see it's drastically different. I had the 9th overall pick, and my first selection was Darren Waller. Kelsey went number 3 overall. So I took Darren Waller this time, and then Evan Ingram ends up being my backup in this one. So I'm a big fan of how this team shaped out too. The thing to note with this team is the running back core is the biggest question. I have Nick Chubb, who I'm in love with, and then the rest of it are very solid players, but they are players with question marks. Raheem Mostert's not going to be the starter the whole year. He may not even start as the week 1 starter. He may just be the split guy with Trey Sermon. But at the end of the 7th round, it is an insane value to pass up. Chase Edmonds in the 6th round, great value. Chris Carson at the end of the 4th is great value. So this is where I just take this draft especially is just good value picks. And then I'm taking long shot wide receivers at the end of the draft, because I start with Chris Godwin as my number 1, and then Chase Claypool with Mike Williams as my 3rd, essentially. And then I just have like good opportunity guys. Russell Gage and Terrace Marshall are starters, and that's my 4th and 5th. And then I take shots with Paris Campbell, Nico Collins, and Don People-Jones. I do believe I'll end up cutting, if I had to guess, Nico Collins, just because of that offense without Deshaun Watson. But I wanted to see if he could sneak into the starting 3 wide receivers. But after this draft, a few days is when they traded and acquired Anthony Miller. So it just kind of shot that down. And Paris Campbell seems like he actually lost the 3rd role to Zach Pascal now as well since this draft. But I'm fine with my wide receivers. I got a consistent guy in Godwin. I got a 2nd-year stud, hopefully, in Chase Claypool. And then Mike Williams, if he stays healthy, is amazing quarterback, and he has very good potential. He's already had a 1,000-yard season with 10 touchdowns. Like, it's just good. But then I have the same defenses like before. Jason Sanders, who was the number 1 kicker last year, I took as my kicker happily. And then I got Stafford and Tannehill as my quarterback tandem in this one. I normally don't, you'll see in the 3rd team, I normally don't do this in any draft where I'll take, 2 quarterbacks who are top 12 quarterbacks essentially on my team. It's not a very good strategy in most cases, but since it's such a deep bench where you have 20 players, I wanted to take bigger shots on the wide receivers at the end of the draft. And at the 12.4, Ryan Tannehill was clearly the best person I could take there. And there's no reason to even risk pushing that back. The third team that you'll see, I did end up pushing back because I'm just very confident I have Tom Brady again as my starter on the 3rd team. And I just got a stud of a backup basically, because Ben Roethlisberger has so much talent around him that he can throw 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in a game, and still fantasy wise it's great. So So I really like this team as well. This team is a lot different in every regard because I got Darren Waller as my first pick and then started building the core. And my running backs are weak behind Chubb overall, but all of them were such like great value to me, and I wasn't sure yet about Trey Sermon or Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is someone I should probably talk about in depth in a video here coming up because, in my opinion, he is a very good player, but you're not paying Melvin Gordon $8 million, and last year he averaged 19 touches a game. He's not going to go away. They're going to split the carries. It's going to be like 10 to 12 for Williams for a game, and then Melvin will still get 8 to 10 touches most likely. So it's going to be taking Williams as a 5th-round pick this year seems nuts to me because I really do think Melvin Gordon had almost 1,000 yards and he had like 9 touchdowns last year and a decent amount of catches from if I'm remembering correctly. So Javonte Williams is going to be amazing next year, but this year it's Melvin Gordon's last year on his contract for $8 million. He's going to play a lot. So, but I really like this team as well, and we'll go in and look at the week 1 lineup that I have here, and it's running back heavy for week 1 because all the matchups for the running backs are relatively really good except for Chris Carson. But I don't want to start Chase Claypool week 1 because they're playing Buffalo, and I just trust Buffalo's defense versus a bad offensive line to just slow them down to making sure Ben does throw short yards, and Chase excels going over the middle or downfield, so it's going to be a bad week 1 for him in my opinion. But the rest of the lineup I'm fucking in love with for week 1. Like, I'm going to squeeze as much juice out of Raheem Mostert as I can before Trey Sermon takes over that role. This team I do like, but it's probably my weakest of the 3 in my opinion. Even though I got one of the tight end premiums in Darren Waller, I just think the running back core, if Chase Edmonds doesn't pan out to be like a consistent guy where he can get me 12 to 15 points a week because he's a reception monster, then it's going to be a problem. If Chris Carson continues to get hurt, like Chris Carson plays 13 or 14 games for me, that's a fucking big win. So that's what I'm looking for. So I still like the team a lot because I love my quarterback situation, and then I'm a big fan of the rest of the team. It just feels like the weakest of depth out of all of my teams. And now let's go on to the third team, which I am very excited about because it feels like the riskiest of the teams because if you just look at the roster, you can see the wide receiver core is insanely risky. But the way that the draft panned out, it was just I took so many good like value running backs over and over again. By the 7th round, I had 5 really solid running backs, and I only had 1 wide receiver at that point. So my first pick this time, I had the dilemma of taking Ezekiel Elliott or Derrick Henry. When I was doing mock drafts for this is draft spot number 5. If I took Derrick Henry a lot of the times, or just a lot of times in general, there's running backs like Nick Chubb would fall to me some of the time. And I didn't want to risk the chance of starting with Henry and Chubb in a full PPR league because it's just so much value lost not having those. Even though both of those players are fucking fantastic where I would be drafting them at, I decided to go with Zeke here. And then it didn't matter anyway because 2nd round, George Kittle fell all the way to the 2.8 in the 2nd round in a tight end premium, which really surprised me because my previous 2 drafts, he never made it past like the 15th overall selection. All 3 of the tight ends were gone by the 15th overall selection. And then it just fucking running backs are just solid as all hell. I got Miles Gaskin towards the end of the sixth, James Robinson in the seventh, and then the two just solid guys, Montgomery and Henderson, third and fourth. And then one of the players I'm a very big believer in that he's going to fix his drop problems is Jerry Jeudy. And he had a lot of targets for his first year last year. Obviously, we're not in love. Nobody's in love with the quarterback situation there. But just the sky's the limit for this guy. I feel like if he just cuts back on his drops, and he's obviously going to improve over the course of year one to year two and all of the offseason buzz, he's been just killing everybody. Yesterday, he had a nice 35-yard catch in his limited amount of action. And then the rest of my wide receivers, I went with guys that I think are just going to be week-to-week PPR, solid PPR players. Jalen Waddle, the rookie for Miami, is their slot guy. He's going to start week one as the number 2. Well, I don't know if they're going to just keep him in the slot and just move one of the other guys up or what they'll do, but I think as the year goes on, he's going to increase his targets per game. Corey Davis and Zach Wilson are fucking in love with each other, and I got him at the end of the 10th. That seems like it's such a good value. Just in the two preseason games so far, I think Corey Davis has had like 9 or 10 targets and over 100 yards receiving. He had 5 catches for 70 yards yesterday, and I think he had like 2 for 20 or 30 the first game, but he had 4 targets. And then there's the rest of the wide receivers. It's just me taking shots again because this is a very deep bench. So I got 2 or 3 guys of the wide receiver core that I can rely on week to week, and that's all I need because my team is focused on the running backs. And then I finally, the entire offseason, I've been wanting to draft Rob Gronkowski because he's 32 years old, and he started beasting again at the end of the last year, into the playoffs, Super Bowl 2 touchdowns. I just think he's going to fucking shoot up again this year as one of the top 12 tight ends and maybe even closer to the top 6 tight ends. Because I just really believe, like, Travis Kelce's the same age as him. Like, his legs are fresher because he took 2 or 3 years off. I think this is going to be a really good year for Gronk. And getting him in the 11th round is such a good value to me, especially when he's my backup. I got George Kittle to just run the show in the tight end premium league. And if Gronk starts playing like I think he is, where he's going to start getting 5 or 6 targets a week, I really think I could end up starting 2 tight ends in some weeks. So just to help alleviate some of the pressure of having, wide receivers that I need more time to develop, like the St. Brown's and Jalen Reagor and Jalen Waddle. So this team feels the most exciting to me of the 3. I think it's my second best team. But it may be my best team. It just depends on if I'm right about Jerry Jeudy. If Jerry Jeudy's going to be a fucking stud like I think he is in PPR, then him and Corey Davis can carry me through having weak wide receivers. Because Corey Davis isn't going to be a touchdown guy, but he's going to be a PPR fucking monster. And that's all I need. So that's the type of stuff you got to look for when you're looking for values in the draft, especially in the mid to late rounds. The 5th round through the 8th round, you're kind of taking you're taking shots on guys, like I did with Jerry Jeudy as my number 1 wideout, and other players that you can do that with, like Brandon Ayuk, Chase Claypool, like all these guys. You're going to draft around that type of area, and then like we mentioned, Trey Sermon and Javonte Williams are in that range as well. So once you get starting to the 9th and 10th round, you can still get high value guys there that either they're going to get touches or they're going to get targets, and that's all you can ask for consistently at those type of picks. And then after that, you just take shots. Like I took Nelson Aguilar, which I haven't done in any other on any of the other teams. Then I got Reagor, St. Brown, and then Jalen Guyton, like I mentioned before. And as you can see, I got Jason Sanders and the same defenses again because I really believe in them. Just hands down. Jason Sanders is going to be a very consistent kicker for me because even though I love Myles Gaskin, that offense is going to struggle putting the ball into the end zone as consistent as some of the top teams. So Jason Sanders is just a fucking beast for consistency when it comes to kicking. So I really like this team. This might be my best team, but it comes down to the wide receivers. Like I said, I actually think it is going to be my best team. As you can see, I didn't stack quarterbacks this time. I just took Ben as my backup, where I'll just start him week 9 when Brady's on a bye week. He doesn't have the best matchup in the world. He plays Chicago, but the most important thing for Ben is he's playing at home and it's on Monday night, where Ben always fucking puts it together. And then on top of that, our defense is, I think it's a little overrated in terms of fantasy, but I do think we're a very good top 10 defense still. And it's going to be Andy Dalton or Justin Fields. So there's plenty of opportunity for sacks and turnovers. So the field position for Ben that game is going to be great. So with all of our offensive talent, even though our offensive line is a big question mark right now, I just thought he was just a great backup pick here when I just run Brady every other week. And then another reason why I like Ben also is if Brady does get hurt, at least Ben has insanely good weapons around him. Where he can, like I mentioned earlier, even if he throws 3 interceptions in a game, he may end up with 3 or 4 touchdowns, because that's just the type of player Ben is. So, and we have so much talent around him. So these are the 3 teams. Here's the week 1 matchup for this team here. You can see, do the same thing where I'm actually benching. See, this is something that's very important to stress to players, especially players who struggle with consistency. I have a very good grasp on week to week what to do, I feel like, with my teams. Some years, obviously, you draft better than you don't. You just got to be active in free agency and smart. But you can't be afraid to bench good players. Week 1, I'm benching my third round pick, David Montgomery, because he's playing the Rams. And the Bears with Andy Dalton is just going to be slower. So it's going to be a slower start for them in that game period. Plus, he has that little bit of an injury that we don't really know if it'll be 100% right away. And if you remember David Montgomery last year, it's very similar. Last year, he ripped his groin in half, basically, and then still played every week. I think except for maybe, I don't remember if he missed one game. But he started off really slow in the year. But at the end of the year, his schedule got worse, but he got healthy, and he became the number 4 overall running back. His schedule this year at the end of the year is insane again. So don't be afraid, even though it's a top 3 or 4 pick, to bench them in bad matchups. Obviously, your first overall pick, you're not going to bench. But you're going to find reasons that, it makes sense to bench players. And you just have to do it. Because if you believe the other guy can get you even 1 more point, then that's a better start. So you got to just go with it. It's not always going to be right, but just pull the trigger on that kind of stuff. So this was the third and final team. I'm not drafting anymore for this, the FFPC league, but I do have one more, friends draft that I'm doing that I've been in for 3 or 4 years, and I won the championship once in. So this is probably what's going to end up being, in my opinion, is going to be my best team, because I got a tight end premium. I really believe in the PPR volume of Judy and Davis, and getting them at the value with really, really strong running back core with Zeke at the helm. I think this team is just going to be my best team. And just going over, I think I have the 3rd or 4th best team in this one, just going into the season. Obviously, injuries will change things, but being the 3rd or 4th best team in almost every draft, I am absolutely happy with, because all you need is a shot at the dance here. So I get to go to the playoffs most likely. I'm assuming in 2 of the 3 I will make the playoffs. I'm sure something will happen I miss in one of them, which I would guess would be that second team, but that's perfectly okay. It's okay to have some failures and stuff. Just don't consistently do the same thing while you're failing year to year. So try to learn. That's why I like doing more than one team overall. I only did one team in the FFPC last year, but I had plenty of teams in other arenas. So just stick to like if you're a player who struggles to make playoffs and that kind of thing, you need to really evaluate how you look at players and how you're going about drafting players. If you're trying to take your risky picks too early kind of thing as well, you should be really focusing on the consistency of players in the first 3 or 4 rounds. Like the team I got, Godwin is my number 1 wide receiver. It was the 4th round. It's such a good value. He's a consistent player. Last year he struggled in the beginning of the year, but he was banged up. So I can fully expect him to be just a consistent player for me. I don't expect him to be the same guy he was 2 or 3 years ago when he finished as the wide receiver 2, I think, overall. But don't be afraid of taking players that are consistent in whatever format you're in and then finding ways to take your shots. Like you need to find a good balance of young players with the good vets, that you can take your shots. And depending on what type of bench format you have too, like mine, it's such a deep bench, I can take even more shots later. Like the first team, since I wasn't comfortable with the tight end premium, I took Pat Freiermuth as the last pick in the whole draft, because he's someone that I think could be very good in this format later in the year. So I'll be doing more videos. Obviously having some videos on actual advice for you as players. Don't be afraid to ask questions or, voice your opinion on the teams and things of that nature. I know I didn't show you the whole draft board. I kind of did that on purpose because there are teams in each one of the 3 drafts that were better than me, and it's pointless to show you the whole board when I know that some people would say, well, this is a better team than yours and you should have done this. And that's fine. I understand that, but it's a conversation we don't even need to have because it happens in every draft. And just because I think I have the 3rd, 4th, or 5th best team going into the season, it could be better than that. It could be worse than that. It doesn't matter. Don't feel like you're handcuffed to your team. Don't make drastic decisions too early though, and give up on players. Look at strength of schedule as teams develop. Obviously, every year there's 2 to 4 new teams in the playoffs every year in the NFL, which is why it's my favorite sport. It's not the same boring shit every year like it is in most other sports for a long time, like baseball was for a long time, and basketball, all that. It's just not my thing. I love the NFL. So don't make drastic decisions too early. Really do good mock drafts if you know your draft position, and try different things. Don't take the same fucking thing every time. Like even if you're in love with, say you're in love with Devontae Adams, you want to take him at the number 7 or 8 spot, which is fucking great. It's perfectly fine. Try different strategies where you take, a running back there instead and see how you feel. Like this year, one of the best values may end up being Saquon Barkley, because he's most likely not going to play the first couple weeks. But if he comes back and he's fully healthy and someone gets him at the end of the beginning of the 2nd round right now, that's such a good value. Try doing shit. Just try different strategies in your drafts. Feel it out of how your overall team looks though at the end. Don't just be like, well, I really like Devontae Adams more, so I'll do that. There's a lot of really good wide receivers between rounds 3 and 5 this year that you don't have to force one of those wide outs. But if you're pick 10 or 11 and for whatever reason Devontae Adams there, you don't ever have to hesitate because that's such a good value for him. And you can still find a running back in the 2nd round that's well worth it, like Gibson or Clyde Edwards, Nick Chubb. There's tons of value. So just try different things when you're doing mocks. You can see as the time went on in these drafts, even though I had different positions in the draft, that you got to just kind of adjust, but also find guys that you do believe, like the consistency. I have Myles Gaskin and James Robinson for running backs on two of my teams because I really believe in they're going to be undervalued, consistent players, and they're going in the 6th and 7th round, and that's just absurd to me for running backs. I haven't heard anything about Etienne this entire offseason really, except for he's fast. But it doesn't mean that he's like understanding the playbook and all this shit. We haven't seen him in the preseason, I don't think at all. Maybe he played a little bit, but all you hear about James Robinson is he's been one of the best players on offense the entire offseason. He lost some weight this offseason so he could be faster because that's what Urban Meyer wants. He's going in the 7th round, 6th or 7th round. He's a starting running back on a team that wants to like have a good mix of pass and run, and they want to protect their rookie quarterback. So James Robinson is fucking steal. Find those guys that you really believe in. My two guys right now, my two overall best value players for running backs are those two. Myles Gaskin in the 6th round, 7th round, James Robinson. If you get that, like I got in that final team, like there's nothing you could have done wrong in those first 5 picks. Because if you did start your team with 3 wide receivers, you have 2 solid running backs that you can rely on every week. Like you could even take a shot on one of the rookie running backs in the 5th round still, and you would be solid. Find what you like. I don't like taking the early quarterbacks, which is something I may regret in the FFPC, because the FFPC is actually a 4-point touchdown passing format. So I still get really good value quarterbacks the rounds I get them, but the Josh Allens, Kyler Murrays, and Lamar Jacksons, etc. They have that's why they are higher picks, because they get rushing yards as well. So the 4 points instead of 6 points for passing touchdowns doesn't matter as much to them. So it's you got to find what you actually believe in. Like I think those guys are really good players, but I don't want to I want to build depth at the other positions, especially running back and wide receiver, before that, because I really believe in those bottom 4 quarterbacks that you saw me take consistently. Brady, I got Rodgers. Because of the holdout situation. But I got Tannehill and Stafford, which I believe in completely too. This is the best team Stafford's ever been on. If he wasn't on in such a competitive division, like I bet you money he would pop off to be like a top 6 quarterback this year. And I don't even doubt that he still could do that. But they're going to focus on good run and pass mix. But he's never had wide receivers like this. He's had a good tight end before with TJ Hawkinson. And obviously he had Megatron too. But Megatron's one amazing Hall of Fame wide receiver. But he's got 3 or 4 wide receivers, I believe, on the Rams that he can trust. And he has a better offensive line probably than he did overall through his career in Detroit, even though Detroit's offensive line now is really good. But offensive line got good, but the talent around that was what was bad for Stafford. So Tannehill's just a consistent monster. He just got Julio, who knows that they're going to throw more now this year because of that, to give Derrick Henry some longevity in his career too. Just stress doing what find out what your mold is, but try different things. Like really try. Don't just get one team and really think it's a good team and then just sit on that when you draft other teams and try to get the same team. Like be adaptive to what happens and know guys that you want to take a shot on, but you don't always have to take the shot on them. Like just do that. So I appreciate you watching this video. Sorry it was a little long-winded here at the end, just me rambling about your drafting consistency in case you're a failing player right now in fantasy. You can always turn that around. You just have to put work into it. So until next time, fucking crush your drafts.